Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs Podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs Podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. Tonight's theme is out of control. We have quite interesting stories to discuss, and we do have a special guest with us as well. I do want to go ahead and show you what we're discussing tonight, and then we'll go ahead and bring in our guest who is involved in one of these stories. So let's go ahead and dive in. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing Anna Kasparian accuses Emma Vigilant. This is getting pretty nasty on social media. Jesus Christ. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss great news tonight. I think this is the good news story. Kendrick Lamar makes history. We're going to dive into that Grammy epic win for Kendrick Lamar, and we'll tell you why this is a big win for hip hop altogether. We're also going to discuss Trump USAID controversy. Oh my God, things are getting crazy. We're also discussing Netanyahu returns to DC. We're going to talk about what some of this conversation between the two of them is about. And then also we're going to get into some of the funding and what does this have to do with Iran? We'll get into all of that. And last but not least, we're going to discuss South Africa fights back. Jesus Christ. It's a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's foreign policy or domestic, and we are here for it. So I do want to go ahead and bring in our guest. His name is Keith McHenry. He is the founder of Food Not Bombs movement, and he has some things to say about USAID. So we're going to talk about that story. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Welcome, Keith. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's beautiful. I watch your show all the time. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm so excited to finally have you on. I know, I've been meaning to bring you on, and it's been crazy busy around here. So I'm glad to finally talk to you in person. First and foremost, before we get into USA ID, could you tell everybody a little bit about Food Not Bombs?
Yeah, so Food Not Bombs started in Boston in 1980. And we were a theater group influenced by the Living Theater. And so we were saying that Reagan gets into power, there are going to be homeless people in America, because when we started, there was very few. So what we do is we collect food that can't be sold from grocery stores and bakeries, and in the case of Boston, from the Haymarket. And then we make that into vegan and vegetarian meals that we share on the streets. And we're active currently probably about 1,500 cities in the world. We're in 65 countries. It's an all-volunteer movement, and we have 3 principles. The food is always free to anyone, rich or poor, drunk or sober, and it's always vegan and vegetarian. That there are no leaders. We're a worldwide decentralized movement. I'm a co-founder, but I'm not don't really have necessarily any influence on the direction, except for my local chapter here in Santa Cruz. And then we are not a charity, but we're dedicated to taking nonviolent direct action to change society so no one has to eat at a Food Not Bombs or at a soup kitchen or live in the streets. And so that's the Food Not Bombs in a nutshell.
That is awesome. We really are passionate about mutual aid over at RBN. So always good to hear about other things that are happening within the community, so people aren't just relying on electoral politics. But speaking of electoral politics, there is this big controversy about USAID. It seems as though chaos has been unleashed. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are making moves. Actually, Donald Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, right? Which is he was going to gut the federal government. And that doesn't end with USAID. So I want to start with this clip here, and then I want to get to something that you posted on X as well. This is Chris Murphy. He's a senator from Connecticut. And I want people to hear his arguments against cutting USAID. I thought this was pretty funny because he says the quiet part out loud.
USAID fights terrorist groups all across this world, making sure that we address the underlying causes for a retreat to terrorism. USAID chases China all around the world, making sure that China doesn't monopolize contracts for critical minerals and port infrastructure all around the world. It supports freedom fighters everywhere in this world. Up until yesterday, delivering firewood, for instance, to the brave Ukrainian defenders on the Eastern Front.
So to make a long story short, I think Chris Murphy makes it very clear that USAID is very much involved in foreign policy, overthrowing governments. And I think a lot of Americans think that USAID is just a humanitarian organization. That's actually not just what it is. In fact, you posted this, and I want to give you a chance to talk about this because this was pretty shocking to me. I forget what I have it. I'm so sorry, Keith. But you posted that someone posted a tweet about basically USAID being a sort of CIA front. And you responded to that tweet and you said something about the drug game, right? Like they said something about why is USAID funding heroin production? And you responded to that. And I want to give you a chance to talk about what you know about this.
Well, I've written a lot on Twitter about the USAID in the last couple of days, so I'm not totally sure what I'd said, but I'll tell you what I know about the issue, and this is probably the tweet you're referring to. So my grandfather was in the OSS, which was the Office of Strategic Services in World War II. And he was involved in helping plan, Pearl Harbor. He was real involved in that, and said we needed to do Pearl Harbor so that the American people would get involved in the war in the Pacific. He also, while in Burma, he led the most deadly bombing campaign in world history, which is called Operation Meeting House, and he firebombed Tokyo. And Daniel Ellsberg, for instance, in his book, writes about that as being the most deadly bombing campaign in world history, and it still, unfortunately, fortunately, is true. Even though there's a lot of horrible bombing campaigns. But the other job that he had was to distribute heroin to the black community in the United States, specifically to quell any possibility of rioting as a result of the fact that the GI Bill would be two-tiered. There'd be one for white people and one for black people, and they're very concerned black people would feel, since they were dying in the same trenches and in the same ocean as white people, that there would be an uprising. So his strategy and the strategy of his friends was to distribute massive amounts of heroin to Black America to make sure they were busy doing that instead of resisting this unequal treatment by the GI Bill.
Wow. So this kind of reminds me, was this during the time of Frank? I forget his last name. I'm sorry. You know, I'm talking about Frank, American Gangster. Denzel Washington played him. Frank Lucas. Was this around the same time?
Well, I don't know the time of that. This is in World War II. So he's starting to distribute the heroin out of Burma during World War II because they knew that the GI Bill would be passed and they needed to subvert. They already knew that the Dixiecrats wouldn't vote for equal GI Bill for blacks and whites and so on. So in preparation of towards the end of the war, they started setting up this heroin network. They also were financing other covert activities with the heroin. For instance, they were using the profits from the heroin to do like terrorist attacks in Italy primarily, and to help fund like the killing of the left, the partisans, after World War II. So there's a lot of what he specifically told me was of the concern of the need to suppress Black America because of this unequal treatment in the GI Bill. But so at that time, his friend, Robert McNamara, who was at the time Secretary of Defense, or would be Secretary of Defense later, he was a general at the time, and he was also very close to General Curtis LeMay. And I used to watch them. My grandfather in Massachusetts, and he would be on the phone arguing with them to drop the atomic bomb on Manhattan. This is at the same time Curtis LeMay was trying to convince John F. Kennedy to bomb a mall in Miami to justify an invasion of Cuba. So I grew up. He passed away when I was 14. I've spent a lot of time. In fact, I spent the last summer before high school with him, going to Needham High to catch up on classes, and he was very clear about a number of things. One of them is that elections were intentionally created to divide and conquer, so there wouldn't be like unity against the ruling class. He made that very clear, and he explained that that presidents and political leaders are put into power by the intelligence community. They manipulate events. You can see that with the Hunter Biden laptop story to get Biden in. You can see that with the Iran-Contra, right? To get Reagan in. This is how it works. So we don't live in a democracy. He made that very clear. And I remember when he passed away, in my freshman year in high school, I went to his funeral, and the pastor talked about what a godly man he was and everything. And that shocked me because he had explained he was in a satanic organization, and that he did not believe in God. And that his buddies and friends who were running he was an attorney, and he worked probably for the CIA on and off for the rest of his life. He did work for scientists, mathematicians at MIT, and they created to pay him for his legal work. They gave him 2 file cabinets full of formulas, which he sold to Ken Olsen, and that became the founding of digital electronics. So the digital surveillance starts all the way back in the 50s, their efforts to create the kind of digital panopticon that we're now facing with Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and the crowd that has seized control of the U.S. government overtly. And I believe what's going to happen is they're going to Rubio's now the head of AID, and he's going to they'll just continue along. There's not going to be it'll just be it'll be more privatized than it already was. And I think essentially what's going to happen is much of the U.S. government will be privatized and given to the PayPal mafia and the other hedge fund spooks and so on to operate as they want. And I think that Operation Stargate is a very strong indication that that's the direction things are going to go.
Very interesting. So I found that tweet here. I want to show this to everyone. This is from Mike Benz. Why was USAID funding the production of heroin in Afghanistan? See, this is the part I think people are not talking about. There's a lot of people right now that are speaking out against, Trump cutting USAID, and they're just talking about it from a humanitarian position. They're not talking about other things that the USAID does. And I'm going to show you exactly how much of that really goes to humanitarian aid. But it says here, U.S. taxpayer funds help irrigate, fertilize Afghan opium, funding Taliban. And then there's another one here, which says American taxpayer money has funded irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer used to support unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production. So this is the piece I think, two things can be true at the same time. And I think this is the part that some people don't want to mention. It's good to have nuance about these sorts of things. USAID could also distribute some humanitarian aid, but that doesn't mean that is its primary function. And I think that's what some people may not understand. So to go along with that, sending taxpayer money to help cultivate heroin in Afghanistan, why is the USAID involved with that? So those are things that need to be said.
Yeah, well, you can see now, I feed the homeless. I'm in the homeless community all day in Santa Cruz. And so we have this huge camp, and you can hear people talking about heroin, before the U.S. left Afghanistan. And within 6 months of the U.S. leaving Afghanistan, the conversation turned to fentanyl. And so one of the largest fentanyl arrests was in San Jose, in California, and it was, the fentanyl was being distributed all over the United States by the San Jose Police Union. So they're trying to give this impression that we're fighting this fentanyl that is coming in from somewhere like China or whatever. It's actually the US CIA and DEA that are organizing that. So if Trump is honest about, which of course this will never happen, but if he really wanted to stop the flow of fentanyl in the United States, he would just order the head of the DEA and the head of the CIA to stop flooding the United States with heroin. And we know, like back in the day, they had the Bloods and the Crips, and the CIA, expanded the Bloods and the Crips with crack cocaine. And then simultaneously, they make a law. Well, if it's powder, white people, maybe a year in prison. A black person, crack, 15 years in prison, right? So that's a Biden, crime bill. And so, so the manipulation of society by the security state using drugs as one of the aspects is ongoing. It's gone from World War II right to the present. So you can always thank the poor people that are suffering on the streets, on fentanyl for our government. In fact, I put up a poster around Santa Cruz. Somebody put fentanyl in little baggies of pot and left it around downtown. So I had 6 friends die that day. And so I put up signs around town, flyers around the community saying fentanyl, chemical warfare by the government. And then a person that was in charge of by the city, controlling the homeless, he virtually beat me up when I tried to put one of those signs up at the homeless camp. So I don't know for a fact what his role is in that, but there was fentanyl and meth going through the camp, and he was in charge of the camp. And this is sadly kind of common in homeless shelters and homeless industrial complex, that there will be like these marketplace for drugs that are actually facilitated by the staff. And so a lot of people don't want to go to, when I was like, I was jailed in San Francisco 94 times. I did 500 days in jail for feeding the homeless there. And I faced 25 to life in prison. I was the first white person to get the 3 strikes case. But when you came, you were allowed $27. And when you went from booking into the dorm, there was these 2 guys that would sell you crack for $27 when you walk through the door. Now, it's supposed to be a secure, jail. But so this is like, this is not, the America is not what people think it is. It's run by covertly, and the things are manipulated. And that's why the left, the real left, not the phony Democratic left, but the actual left like us, we have a very difficult time. I've been writing, which could be seen on anarchistcook.blog later this evening, where I detail the basic highlights of the counterintelligence operations that I, first of all, learned about from my grandfather, the ones that I referred to at the beginning, and then my experience of facing the FBI, the CIA, Interpol, and so on for the last 45 years. And I've been honey trapped. I've had my mail taken. I've been smeared. I've been kicked out of Food Not Bombs forever, obviously I'm still in Food Not Bombs, but that was like I just ignored that. But I had to adjust in the 45 years to the fact that my life is very heavily impacted by covert operations. In 1988, I was arrested the first time, the first 9 of us, on August 15th. And then the next week, the 24 people arrested, and the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force showed up to observe that arrest. And on the 29th of August of 1988, they wrote a memo to the San Francisco field office of the FBI saying that we were a credible national security threat. Then that Thanksgiving, the National Guard all across America held workshops on domestic terrorism featuring Food Not Bombs. Then in 2009, I happened to be speaking at Harvard Law, and I just had spoken at Princeton, and I watched C-SPAN lecture at Tufts University at the school, Fletcher School of Diplomacy, and a State Department person was comparing Al-Qaeda to the people that served the vegan meals in the parks. And if I had not seen this twice, I wouldn't have believed it. But he said that the people serving the vegan meals are much more dangerous than Al-Qaeda, because they could possibly convince the American people that money should be diverted from the military to healthcare, education, and other social services. So that's why, even in 1988, when there's only 30 Food Not Bombs people in the world, 10 in Boston, 10 in Long Beach, and 10 in San Francisco, that we are already declared a national security threat, a credible national security threat.
Well, I mean, it sounds somewhat similar to what happened to Chairman Amali Yeshitela from the Uhuru movement as well, right? Like people trying to help people. I want to show people this video here from James Lee, and I got to bring James on as well. People need to see this, because I see a lot of people up in arms like, oh my God, defunding USAID. But he really shows the numbers about where this money is going. He said, don't believe what US politicians and the mainstream media are saying about USAID. He's going to show you how much of this actually goes to humanitarian aid. Listen to this.
This agency is responsible for providing humanitarian assistance for millions of people around the globe, dozens of developing nations around the globe.
I don't think you should believe either of us. I think we should be asking the developing nations what they think about USAID. And this is what the president of El Salvador had to say. He says, quote, most governments don't want USAID funds flowing into their countries because they understand where much of that money actually ends up. While marketed as support for development, democracy, and human rights, the majority of these funds are funneled into opposition groups, NGOs with political agendas, and destabilizing movements. At best,
so everybody heard that, where the majority of the money is funded. Remember, the CIA has all different organizations or groups that they can use as a front. We talked about this before with Gloria Steinem. We were talking about how she was also working for a CIA organization. Listen to this.
Yes, maybe 10% of the money reaches real projects that help people in need. There are such cases, but the rest is used to fuel dissent, finance protests, and undermine administrations that refuse to align with the globalist agenda. Cutting this so-called aid isn't just beneficial for the United States, it's also a big win for the rest of the world. Don't believe him? Well, here are the actual numbers. Some of the budget, yes, goes to humanitarian aid, but if you notice that it is second on the list after governance, aka meddling in the domestic affairs of other countries. And for
This is why I continue to say, guys, that once again, two things can be true at one time, right? So it could be true that some of this is going to humanitarian aid, but it's also true when you look at the charts there, it shows you that the majority of it is not going to humanitarian aid. The majority is going towards governance. So just keep that in mind.
And for those questioning the legality of shutting down USAID, I'm not 100% sure, so I'm going to just give you additional information and context to the organization itself. So President John F. Kennedy created USAID in 1961 by executive order. So maybe because this agency was set up through executive order, it could probably be undone through executive action as well. This next part is kind of tricky because it seems like USAID programs are funded by Congress, but the agency itself is, quote, subject to the foreign policy guidance of the President, Secretary of State, and the National Security Council, which also seems like what's possibly happening right now with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, taking over as the acting head of USAID. That's kind of where we're at right now. So if you're a constitutional scholar and you can offer some guidance there, we welcome your input.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this, Keith, because one of the things that Ilhan Omar was on Joy Reid, and she's one of the Congress members that has been speaking out very vocally about defunding USAID. One of the things that she said is that the president did not go through Congress and that Congress holds the purse, so to speak. But what we saw there from that text from James Lee, it shows that you can go around like Congress for this particular thing. Do you think that someone like Ilhan Omar, do you think that she's really aware of what this organization is doing?
I would assume so. I mean, I talked to people in Somalia myself who trying to start Food Not Bombs chapters. They're already freaked out by the U.S. involvement in their country now. So, you know, you would have to be really dense not to know that the purpose of AID, just like the purpose of the National Endowment for Democracy or the Peace Corps, these agencies are specifically to further U.S. foreign policy interests and are often used. So like the Food Not Bombs kids in Kenya were working for Peace Corps, and they were so angry at where the food was going that they started stealing it themselves and giving it to actual poor people in the ghetto because they were just mortified that it went. So that food went to pay off U.S. allies in Kenya at the time to manipulate, you know, so that the people that the U.S. wanted it to stay in power got the free Peace Corps food to feed a population that would then support them in the leadership of Kenya's agenda. So yeah, this is it's amazing that even 10%, the 10% that does help somebody is by accident. It's not part of the plan. And then you see, like when Victoria Nuland, first you see a pattern in the last 4 years. You see Samantha Powers shows up to Sudan. A week later, or maybe 2 weeks later, Victoria Nuland shows up in Sudan. A week later, you have a civil uprising killing probably 1 million people already, or maybe many more, because they had some geopolitical issue that they wanted to defend in Sudan. So this is just this endless pattern of this. I have this weird. I was worried you're going to ask me about this, but I will because I tweeted this too. But I happened to run a pirate radio station with there was this time where we had all these like pirate radio, 400 of them in North America, and mine was San Francisco Liberation Radio. So a friend said, "Oh, you should talk to this guy who ran the pirate radio station in Prague during the Velvet Revolution." So I become friends with him, and I go visit him in Prague, and he has a roommate, and this roommate is like trying to get me to go. I thought she was real attractive. We're flirting the whole time. She wants me to go to Bosnia with her. She's going to take pictures in Bosnia. I could feed the children, and her name was Samantha Powers. And when I see her now, it's a really creepy thing. So it turns out, then I'm thinking, maybe Gabriel, since he was running a pirate radio station trying to overthrow a communist government, maybe I was set up all the way along. And when I review my life, there's a lot of manipulation like that. So it's a very possible that I was a guest of a CIA asset, and that Samantha Powers was not yet, a big deal yet, but that probably already at that time working clandestinely as well. And that would be a good way to get me off, would be to have another hunting trap and go to Bosnia and get myself shot.
Interesting. And another thing I just want to tell everybody, if you want to feed people in other countries that are in need, you can do that without USAID. That's Absolutely. The thing people to understand. You don't need to have that organization to feed people in those other countries. So after you've heard what Keith has just said and what I showed you tonight, like on the show, just keep that in mind when you hear politicians speaking about USAID as this great need that they need to maintain, and then question that. Because again, like I said, like a lot of these organizations, like from what I've noticed from my experience, a lot of times when you have all these politicians that are gung-ho pushing an organization and says this organization is great, it needs to stay, there's usually a catch to it. The organizations that are really out there helping people, and I mean like it's 100% going to the people and not going to overhead or to other entities, those organizations usually are not promoted by the politicians. And that's how you can tell the difference, guys. So just keep that in mind. Keith, where can people follow you to keep up with your work?
Well, the main thing is foodnotbombs.net. And there you can find all the chapters in the world. And we have, we are feeding people along the Ukraine-Polish border. So we're all over the world. And then I have this blog, anarchistcook.blog, which will have this the newest post, but I have another one that might be of interest to people that's at the top of it right now. So yeah, foodnotbombs.net, and there is probably a chapter in your town, or you're free to start a chapter. So we are all volunteer. Each group is autonomous, and we are global. So and you're right. I mean, I was in Nigeria, met with the head of agriculture in Nigeria, and she pointed out that Nigeria was the one feeding the famines out in Niger and so on. It was farmers in Nigeria that were feeding other Africans. It was not the USAID, even though my father's best friend's wife was in the State Department in Lagos trying to undermine the government of Nigeria. And I got to, when my sister got married, I listened to the 3 days of her conversations before she went back to Uzbekistan to destroy that country. And it is outrageous what she said. She was an amazing racist, and she was in the U.S. State Department. And I was just shocked that we were sending people of her caliber around the world to destroy their nations. And that's direct experience listening to that. So foodnotbombs.net, that's where you can find us. Thank you, Sabrina, so much. So
Thank
beautiful.
You so much. Thanks for coming on, Keith.
Yep. Take care, everyone out there in
Bye.
podcast land. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Keith McHenry again. We talked here about the USAID. So just, again, keep that in mind, folks, because you're going to see a lot of people that are going to say, like, well, we got to keep this in place. It's taking food and aid from other countries. And I just showed you that's actually not the case. Again, remember, as someone who does mutual aid, just keep in mind, you do not need to have those organizations in place to feed people in other countries. So the USAID is basically a CIA front group. And that's why you see the politicians pushing for it to stay so heavily. Pass that on to someone else. Pass it on. There's a number of people that are like, oh my God, we're going to lose the aid. And I'm just like, oh my God, people. A lot of people falling for the propaganda. All right. Let's go ahead to some of the comments in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll get to the other stories as well. Shout out to Leroy, who's been a member for 41 months. Leroy been with me for a long time. You've been with me long time, Leroy. Greetings, Roger. Santa McHenry Claus is back. Thank you, Gamble. Marco Rubio praised strongman Nayib Bukele, who has offered to house dangerous American criminals in custody of our country, including those of U.S. citizenship and legal residents. WTF. I know, right? I know. Thank you, Jasmine. I really wish we talked more about heroin's impact on our community. It gets overshadowed by crack, but opioids are very addictive. One of my favorite movies, Dead Presidents, highlights this. Yes, that's another one, guys, that you have to put on your watch list is Dead Presidents if you haven't seen it. Maybe I could do a deep dive into that, Jasmine. A deep dive, that whole story about what happened when soldiers came back from Vietnam and how drugs were pushed in. Maybe that could be my next deep dive. Thank you, Chris. USAID, was outed by then Senator Ted Kennedy in a 1972 GAO report, which he claims funds went to the CIA for Laos regime change. The pushback was immediate. Skylar says, what? So we lock in people up hooked on heroin while also subsidizing heroin production? That's right, Skylar. Thank you, Joe. Give USAID money to FBA. It'd be better for our citizens, right? You see how the government spends their money? The Oracle said, Trump. Oh, actually, I'm going to come back to that one for the next story. Thank you, JB. Such a jolly and passionate guy. And thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Other countries don't need food, but the ability to grow food. There you go. All right, Eric, just keep the Oracle one there because that's for the next story, actually. Thanks so much. Okay, guys, smash the like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And just a reminder, tonight's theme is out of control because things are just getting out of control. All these stories just crazy, out of control. Quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. I'm making sure I don't forget about you guys. Don't want to forget about you. Hey, hey, hey. And if you didn't get a chance to answer that poll, make sure you do that as well. I'm curious to see how many people were familiar with USAID. Thank you to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being one, I got 5 categories, just like Kendrick got 5 Grammys. Oh man, I can't wait to get that story. Ultimate Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies. They're holding down the fort as well, you know, and everybody builds arms around them. It's like, put your arms around me. It's a Creed moment with arms wide open. And of course, we have members. Thank you guys so much. You can see all their names here, and you can see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. I think I shouted out Billo already, but I want to give a shout out to Kevin MD and John Crump. I wonder if John Crump gets crump with it. You know what I mean? Do you guys think John Crump gets crunk? What do you think? Yay? Nay? Maybe? You don't know? It's interesting about the Creed thing. It's interesting. I'm sorry, B. I'll mention this. A lot of people say they hate Creed and they hate Nickelback, but somebody like them because Nickelback still sells out concerts and Creed used to sell out concerts. I think lead singer went off on an ego trip and I don't know what happened to him now, but somebody liked them. There were people at those concerts. I think they're just keeping it quiet. They don't want you to know that they actually are Creed fans or Nickelback fans. So there's that. Okay. All right. Let's go to our next story, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not heard by now, Netanyahu is back in DC, this time to have discussions with Donald Trump, but not just Donald Trump, also to visit Congress. He is here to pick up another check and also discussing a new deal of sorts. Let's go ahead and get into that, ladies and gentlemen. Trump has a deal for Netanyahu when they meet Tuesday, which was today. Will he take it? Oh, buddy, let's dive into this here. It says negotiations have begun for a second phase of a ceasefire deal that would end the war with Hamas and return all Israeli hostages from captivity in Gaza. Also on the table is a bargain that could reshape the Middle East for decades to come. A deal to open Israel's diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia. Now, why is this shocking, folks? You guys know Saudi Arabia kind of dabbles, with two different teams. Like, they're friends with the US, but they're also friends with China and Russia too. They party a little bit with BRICS, but they also party a little bit with the West. So it almost seems like in order for Netanyahu and the Likud party to secure this capture of the rest of the land in the Middle East, it sounds like they need some type of support from Saudi Arabia. And whether or not Saudi Arabia is going to do that, I don't know. They have been known to be a fair weather friend. So sometimes they'll just be like, yeah, we're going to do it. And they're like, I don't know, and they're going to be looking for something in the deal for them as well. Now, it goes on to say another central question to resolve. Excuse me there. Whether Israel will launch a military strike on a weakened Iran, shorn after a year of intense fighting against its proxies. So here we go, folks. And this is the part I want people to really pay attention to. They're itching to go after Iran. The Likud party is itching. Remember, they don't want Iran there. Regardless if Iran chooses not to use any weapons at all, they don't want Iran there. Benjamin Netanyahu said in front of Congress himself, he said that it was a curse. And he said the blessing was with Iran gone. Of course, Israel having the West Bank and Israel having Gaza too. They see it as a curse. They want the Palestinian people gone. They don't want Iran there either. This has to just deal with not just obviously ethnic cleansing, but also trade, commerce, resources. There's a lot of things at play here. Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, played a key role in persuading Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire first phase. And Trump wants to see the deal continue until all hostages are freed and the war is over in order to focus on the Saudi-Israeli peace deal. Now, see, guys, everybody has to keep in mind, remember, when Benjamin Netanyahu talked about his plan of a greater Israel, that included part of Syria, that included part of Lebanon, a small piece of Jordan, if I remember correctly. And it seems like in order for this to really go through, it's almost like they have a better chance of other Arab nations accepting this if Saudi Arabia gives them the green light. That's almost what it seems like to me. Now, this part right here, Netanyahu's political future and legacy. The main challenge Netanyahu faces is from Smotrich, Israel's finance minister, who wants the war to continue until Hamas is destroyed, which I think we all know is not going to happen, right? We know they're not going to destroy Hamas. They haven't destroyed Hamas yet, or even come close to that. A task Israeli defense analyst believes that's unrealistic so long as Hamas continues to hold Israeli hostages and Israel does not endorse a viable alternative leadership for Gaza. So, long story short, Benjamin Netanyahu is here in DC. He is here to get more money, not just more money, but also this, green light to go ahead and just basically take what's left of the West Bank. I want to go ahead and bring in this clip here, ladies and gentlemen.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with President Trump at the White House this afternoon to discuss the ceasefire in Gaza. Speaking to reporters at the Oval Office yesterday, Mr. Trump expressed little confidence that the ongoing truce is viable.
I have no assurances that it'll hold. I mean, I've seen people brutalized. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. No, I have no guarantees that the peace is going to hold.
For the latest, let's turn to Claudia Lavanga. Claudia, good morning. Netanyahu already met with the president's Mideast envoy. How did those talks go?
Good morning, Francis. Well, at least according to the Israeli Prime Minister office, who issued a statement, this morning, those talks with the envoy by President Trump were positive and friendly. They also announced that they will send a team to Doha at the end of the week to start talking about phase 2 of the ceasefire. But not everyone in the Israeli government wants to get to phase 2. The Interior Minister has already resigned, and recently, the Finance Minister has also threatened to resign if Israel doesn't go back to fight Hamas in Gaza after phase 1, despite the fact that there will still be Israeli hostages in Gaza. And this is something that will potentially torpedo the ceasefire agreement and, of course, worries the families of the hostages who are still there. Let's take a listen.
The extremists in Israel's government and coalition are attempting to sabotage the deal. They want to resume the war at the expense of the hostages' lives. I don't trust Netanyahu to bring my son home from captivity, but I do trust you, Mr. President. I know you will bring my Matan and the rest of the hostages home.
Well, in the meantime, the leader of the opposition in Israel, Lapid, said that his party will offer support to the government to make sure that it has a safety net to guarantee that the ceasefire holds a message to Netanyahu, but also President Trump ahead of their meeting there. Francis?
Okay, and I want to bring you recent news as well, because it sounds like the decision has already been made. I'll get to that in just a second. But as you all know, of course, Code Pink is encouraging everybody to fight back against Benjamin Netanyahu's visit here in D.C. As you can see it here, listen to what Medea Benjamin had to say.
So the war criminal Netanyahu arrived last night in Washington, D.C. Boo! And there are people outside the Blair House where he's staying, and we're here in the Senate because we heard he's coming to the Senate today. So we are looking around for the war criminal who needs to be arrested.
And do you know why he's staying at the Blair House instead of the Watergate? Well, it was because all the protesters that were at the Watergate the last time he was here made sure he couldn't sleep at night, and so they think he's going to get a good night's sleep at the Blair House, and he's not going to get it. We're going to be there 24 hours a day.
Even the Watergate doesn't want him.
Arrest the war criminal.
Okay, but they are not arresting the war criminal, and I sincerely hope you get a chance to watch the interview that I did with Colonel Larry Wilkerson. He was a colonel under Colin Powell during the George W. Bush administration, who heavily disagreed with the war in Iraq and what is happening now as well. I recorded that interview, and he reveals some things about the U.S. government, and I think you guys need to hear that. That should premiere on Thursday, because I won't be live Thursday. I have other plans, but that interview will premiere, I believe, during the afternoon. So make sure you check that out, because he goes into a lot more detail. Now, I do have this statement here from Donald Trump right now. So I do want to go ahead and add this information from the conference. Donald Trump explaining what is going to happen with Gaza. And let me go ahead and put this here. Let's go ahead and bring this in. I do not want people to see this as a surprise. I expected this to happen. I called this to happen. If Donald Trump wasn't president, this was still going to happen. And I'll explain that a little bit later, but let's get into this announcement here, ladies and gentlemen.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly to restore trust in the alliance and rebuild American strength throughout the region. And we've really done that. We're a respected nation again. A lot's happened in the last couple of weeks. We are actually a very respected nation again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
So Donald Trump is saying the quiet part out loud. The U.S. is going to take over the Gaza Strip. But if you look back at Kamala Harris's, I think her first speech about Gaza before she was announced as the nominee, Kamala Harris, remember, she gave that speech on the bridge in Selma, and she said, Gaza will have to be rebuilt. I want to be very clear when I say this, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not me taking cover for Trump. I don't like this mofo either. But I want to be very clear. I want you to understand something. Both political parties agree with what Israel is doing. Now, some members of those parties may not agree with the death toll, may not agree with the images of the children, etc. But the parties agree with what Israel is doing. Not only do they agree with it, they're the leader of it. You see, this is something that I found out when I talked to Colonel Wilkerson. As many times as I've said on the show that the U.S. is basically Israel's bitch, that the U.S. does whatever Israel wants them to do. When I spoke to Colonel Wilkerson, who was very much involved in that space, he made it very clear that people have it backwards. The U.S. is telling Israel what to do. AIPAC exists because the U.S. wants it to exist. Now, I say U.S., I don't mean us, but the powers that be and the U.S. government. The reason why they don't try to let's get rid of this corporate money, let's get rid of PACs like AIPAC, is because our government wants it there. And the government leadership wants it there. I want to be very clear because I had to really check myself with this one. As many times as I've told you, the U.S. is just doing whatever Israel wants it to do. I had it backwards too. And I'm woman enough to admit that I had it wrong. The U.S. is the one that's been telling Israel what to do. The U.S. wants this to happen in the Middle East, the U.S. government. And the reason why they do is because of the resources that are there. And because when you hear people say that we have to protect Israel because that's a part of U.S. interests, it's because they're located where they're located. This is the final phase of colonialism. So yes, the U.S. government is currently and has been all along supporting a settler colonial project. And it's easier to point the fingers and say it's because of AIPAC. Yeah, that's easy when you follow the money. But then you have to ask this question. Why is AIPAC still there? Why is it that the powers that be, the leadership in these parties, why don't they make a move to stop having people take the money? You see Congress members that have been lost their seats. They lost their seats because of the money that's coming from AIPAC. What I want you guys to understand is they're all in on it. And it's not just people who say, people point fingers and they say it's the evangelicals that want it. It's not just them. It's those who see the need for them to be there because of the resources in the region that they do not want Iran or other Arab countries in that area to even get a taste of it. When these people stood up in front of you, Biden, Kamala, and they told you the Palestinian people need self-determination. When Antony Blinken told you that we need to get some type of a two-state solution, these people are actors. These people were lying. They've been lying over and over. They don't want a two-state solution. They just said that to save a little bit of face and have a little bit of dignity left after the genocide. They approve of everything that Israel is doing. They don't want the Palestinian people there either. They want Israel to have control over the resources right there in the Middle East. And that's the final colonial project. Trump says the quiet part out loud. Unlike Kamala and Biden, he didn't even try to pretend like he cared about the Palestinian people. He just let you know right out front, the U.S. is going to take Gaza and the Palestinian people are going to have to leave. The reason why a lot of people have this type of, vitriol towards Donald Trump is because he has no filter. He says these quiet things out loud. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that Biden and Kamala also had the same agreement. Some of the money that Netanyahu is coming to collect this week in DC was already approved by Joe Biden before Donald Trump took over in the White House. So the billion that we're talking about, don't forget, some of this came from Biden. So this is not a defense of Donald Trump, but I am here to tell you, because some people are saying you guys shouldn't have voted third party. Look at what you got. First of all, the math doesn't even add up that way. People learn how to do math. Because with all the third party votes combined, Kamala Harris still loses by a lot. So that's not even the case. That being said, I do not want you to think that Kamala and Biden would not be on board with it. They were always on board, but they were trying to be more quiet about it. Donald Trump says it out in the open. I'm heavily, heavily against this. This is not, we're going to rebuild it and make it better for the people. This is gentrification 1,000 times over. These people are not going to be able to stay there. If any of you live in a community that has been rebuilt, you know from experience what happens after they rebuild. Usually the people who are there are pushed out. They're done, gone. They have to go somewhere else. He made it very clear to you earlier when he said, I'm trying to get Egypt to take the Palestinian people. They were already refugees. The people in Gaza were already pushed out. And now they're trying to get Egypt. And I heard Indonesia, like all these different countries to try to take the Palestinian people, and they want the land. Listen.
We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
Pause. Now, let me show you the confliction here, right? So if you're going to level it out, which is what he just said, how are the people going to be able to stay there while you level it out? They're not going to be able to stay there. So the people are going to have to leave. And then they'll level it out and they'll rebuild. And guess what? They're not going to let them come back. They will be refugees again.
Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly to restore trust in the alliance and rebuild American strength throughout the region. And we've really done that. We're a respected nation again.
You heard what he said, build American strength throughout the region. And it's interesting, you talk about killing and bloodshed, but you got the killer sitting up there, right up there on the stage, right next to you. The killer in chief is this guy right here, right? Benjamin Netanyahu is the killer in chief. That's who the killer is. And the way that this is going, like I said before, guys, whatever you do, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, do not forget what happened. Don't you let them, when you have children, make sure you teach your children the truth. Because I can guarantee you right now, if you have a 5-year-old, no, maybe not 5-year-old. If you have a baby, by the time they're old enough to go to school, I'm willing to bet you the history books are going to paint a different picture. tell your kids the truth. So he's here and he'll be here to ask for more money. And then there's this situation with Iran. And I want you to hear what Trump said about Iran. This is a fear tactic here from Israel. Listen to this.
It's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That'd be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why, lack of intelligence, perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader or close to a leader, frankly, if you had other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran.
So this is an Israel fear tactic. They're trying to get people, again, notice this is Fox News, right? They're trying to make it seem like, oh, Iran might try to assassinate Netanyahu or you or anybody and da-da-da. So do you see they're already painting the narrative? So if something were to happen to Benjamin Netanyahu, they can go back to this tape and say, see, we tried to warn you. Does this sound familiar? Because if you remember the Iraq War, it's the same playbook. It's the same script. Please make sure you watch my interview with Colonel Wilkerson, who was a part of the George W. Bush administration and was heavily against these wars. And then listen to what he says about Iranian oil. I'm trying to tell you guys what's coming.
They cannot have a nuclear weapon. With me, it's very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. We don't want to be tough on Iran. We don't want to be tough on anybody, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Mr. President, are you going to engage in conversations with your counterpart in Iran?
I would.
Do you want to block the sale of Iranian oil to other nations?
Well, we have the right to do that, and that's what I did before, and they had no money. They wouldn't have had the money for Hamas or Hezbollah and anybody else. It could have been solved, this thing. It just, if things went the way they should have, this would have been over long ago, but it's not over.
How close do you think Iran is to developing a nuclear weapon?
I think they're close. They're too close. But again, you could go back 4 years. I would have said they would have had it during this intervening period. But they're pretty close, Peter.
And why is Iran happy to sign it if it's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani?
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do.
Yeah, we heard that part. So basically, and sorry, the volume for that video was just very low. But what he was saying is that the U.S. has the right to block the sale of Iranian oil to other nations. Why? For all the people that continue to tell me that you believe in free market capitalism, that's what Donald Trump says. Didn't Joe Biden also say he believed in free market capitalism? Kamala Harris also believed in free market capitalism. Elizabeth Warren, I'm a capitalist, she said. So if you believe in free market capitalism, why do you have the right to block oil sales from another country to someone else? Because if you love free market capitalism, you should be totally fine with competition. So this is another example to show you it's all bullshit. When they say they're fine with, they love competition, they love free market capitalism, what they're really trying to say is that they love it just for the US. They don't want other countries to try to compete. Beware of what is already happening right now. They are already starting the fear mongering about Iran. They are already starting to tell you that Iran may do this. Oh, they're developing a nuclear weapon. Just like back when they told you that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. I sincerely hope the American people are going to be smart enough to not fall for this again, regardless of what political party you side with. I sincerely hope you guys are not going to fall for the whole okie doke again They're developing this. What a mess, man. What a mess. Crazy times. Chicago says it's all about the petrodollar. Interesting. Let's go to some of the other comments here as well. So the Oracle, just said that Trump said in a press conference with Bibi that the U.S. will take an ownership position in the rebuild of Gaza and the Palestinians will be relocated to Jordan and Egypt. And it's funny because I haven't heard Jordan or Egypt confirm any of this. Shout out to Holistic Radical, who just became a Sabby member. Give Holistic Radical a big whoop, whoop in the house, fam. All right. Thank you, Warrior. So the war on drugs, Reagan, was all fake. Angie, Kendrick got 5 Grammys in one night. Drake got 5 Grammys his entire career. Those jokes are already starting. I can't wait to get to that story. Thank you, John. Since you mentioned Nickelback, what do you think of System of a Down, Disturbed, Avenged Sevenfold, and My Chemical Romance? System of a Down is pretty based. I like some of their songs. Disturbed, okay. Not into Avenged Sevenfold. My Chemical Romance used to be cool, like back in the day, and then like they started to sound too much like all these other bands. Like I feel like My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, and what's the other one? Panic at the Disco. I feel like that's one big band. Like, I feel like it's one big band. I don't know. Shout out to Marlon Wells for becoming a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Okay. H, what's up? This is shocking. Sabby, is RBN organizing any protest against the Trump administration for their aggressive actions against the Palestinians and ongoing genocide? It needs to be on a massive level. So we attend protests that are usually organized by larger organizations because like we don't have the resources to organize something that big, but we've all been to these protests, right? There's supposed to be another one, I believe sometime this month, but the ones that I've gone to are the ones hosted by Answer Coalition. And I've covered those on the ground a couple of times. And then I've gone to ones where I didn't cover on the ground, like cover a news story on the ground. But we usually attend ones that are already organized by larger organizations because we just don't have those types of resources. But yeah. Thank you, Jasmine. A president Israel had back in the 70s wanted to broker peace with Palestine and was removed from power. The U.S. certainly runs them. Thank you, Jasmine. Bam, bam, bam. Jasmine gets it. P. Smith. Oh, P. Smith, you've been a member for 17 months. Give him a big whoop. You talked about how they don't want China's new Silk Road, but Israel's Silk Road in the beginning of the genocide. Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu, he showed the design for this when he spoke in front of Congress, how he did want that connection between the Middle East, right, over towards Europe. And it's just crazy. Thank you, Trust and Success. You notice he keeps saying the people of the area. He's not saying Palestinians, which means Israeli citizens because they are in the area. Thank you, Trust and Success. Exactly. He's very careful with the wording. Thank you, John. Many MAGA pundits were pro-Israel under Trump, but turned anti-Israel under Biden. If Trump had backed Gaza's genocide on October 7th, they'd love it. When he backs Israel post-ceasefire, they'll flip again. And that's the problem with the two-party system. That's the big problem because people don't. You should have your set issues regardless of what your party does, right? So I have certain moral issues, certain places where I fit morally that I don't change, regardless of what these parties do. But that's the problem. Thank you, Focus. It was a mistake to think Israel is just an innocent pawn of U.S. imperialism. Israelis and the diaspora run this country, both political parties and our media, except TikTok, obviously. We get nothing. They get everything. Thank you, Piano Man, for the super sticker. And thank you, Marvin. BRICS is a threat. De-dollarize is a threat to U.S. power. Yeah, but BRICS probably would have never even became a thing if the U.S. government didn't continue to sanction these countries over and over. So it's just out of control, guys. We are in an out of control phase. Let's get that comment there on Rockfin. Thank you, Roger. Now you see that right there, Sab. He was considered a threat to national security for feeding people, making sure they stay out of poverty because it depletes MIC from bodies to go do imperialism. This shows how prioritizing resolving issues here at home auto resolves our foreign policy. Run what you'd like to see nationally at the state level via CBI amendments, and you cut them off at the source. Tag on RBN. Thank you for this one. People, if you like the interview Sabby gave, go and check when JB interviewed Santa Claus McHenry on his show. He spent about 2 hours with them. Sabby gave us a shrimp appetizer. JB's interview was the steak dinner. However, Sab got the exclusive regarding his thoughts on USAID. When will that interview be by itself available, Sab? Sometime this week. Yeah. And thank you for this. You guys should see the full, go see that interview with JB. Like, JB did talk to him about a lot. So they're already trying to change history, Sabrina, like I told you about, talking about how media would make you think that the college protest was the only protest for Palestine, when protests begin in the streets and end at college campuses. Thank you so much for that. Hey. Okay. We are moving on to the next story. This one isn't as intense, but I'm just a little confused. So, smash the like. The theme tonight is out of control. And something has happened within, I guess, the left / progressive, liberal, whatever you want to call it, media space. Things have gotten a little out of control. Ever since TYT made this announcement that they were going to be a little bit more understanding, I guess, towards like MAGA supporters, or they were going to try to work with them on issues where they agree, there has been a lot of, back and forth chatter from former colleagues of theirs. And I'm talking about people that were once a part of TYT. So for those who are not aware, a lot of people that have progressive shows now, a lot of them kind of got their start at TYT and then, went on and did their own thing, or they had their own show and TYT said, we want to make you an affiliate channel, which also helps you in the algorithm, by the way, right? And I think a lot of people are really upset about the path that Cenk and Anna have decided to take. I discussed that earlier on. And now it's getting kind of dirty. Now the fighting is getting really, really dirty. Because now there are things that are being said without proof. And I think could really hurt credibility of either one of these shows, right? It all started with this. So Emma Vigilant posted, gotta love the performative POSness from the polymarket populace, coming for ally and movement partner Franny Fio, because she posted Cenk's own words coming from his mouth. Go back to your roots, ranking celebrity camel toes. Get your clicks that way as the rest of us oppose fascism. Yikes. So she is referring to, it's interesting though, like so many people bring up the camel toe segments now, but they didn't have a problem, I guess, with those segments when they went to work for TYT, right? So Emma Vigilant did work for TYT, and the camel toe segments, I believe, if I remember correctly, happened before she was working with them. So it's interesting how it's a problem now, but it wasn't a problem like back then. But what she's referring to is this video here where someone just said, wow, it is the comment that Anna made about Franny's interview with Cenk. Listen to this.
I know that Francesca Fiorentini is currently attacking you about this as if Donald Trump is unique. He's novel compared to past presidents, certainly a special kind of evil that we've never seen before. In her mind, these are the gulags that she was warning about. But in fact, this has been a longstanding practice. You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump isn't doing anything new here.
Yeah, so I'm going to address it. I think that the clip that Francesca's using is misleading and totally out of context.
Okay, so first of all, this clip is edited, right? So this is something I do want to show people. When you see these clips, like clips on Twitter, and it's obvious that there's something was removed, try to go back and see the full clip. I hate when they have these clips on Twitter where it's obviously there was something that was skipped or context that was left out of the clip. This is not a defense of TYT, but I'm just saying I hate when people do that. So whatever's missing here in between, just keep that in mind. You can see the jump happen.
Long-standing practice. You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump isn't doing anything new here.
Yeah, so I'm going to address it. I think that the clip that Francesca's using is misleading and totally out of context, but that's okay. But I know that—
No, it's not okay. No, it's not okay. That dishonesty is not okay. Yeah, but continue. Go ahead.
I hear you. I hear you. I don't mean to
But she's getting the likes that she wants, right? Otherwise, I mean, who would pay attention to anything she's doing if she's not attacking TYT? But anyway, continue, Jane.
Yeah, it's—
Damn. So I think that Cenk was willing to let it go, right? That's what it looked like to you, that Cenk Uygur is willing to just be like, just let this go. It's like, don't worry about it. Let's just move past it. But Anna was like not willing to let that go and said, no, it's not okay, right? Skylar said, I agree, Sabby. People be getting creative with these clips and it's often not fair to the person being clipped. Yeah, I mean, it's just really, this whole thing to me is just kind of, I feel like it's gone too far. Right. So we talked about this when they decided that they were going to move in a different direction, that they were going to try to work with MAGA on the issues where they agree. And TYT is the home of progressive. So obviously that caused a big stir. I mean, I know you guys remember I talked about it and I said, I think they're just trying to do this for growth. But it kind of backfired and they did lose subscribers and it looks like they lost memberships as well. So that's not helping them grow. I don't know what path they're really trying to go with here now or whatever, but it seems like what I predicted over a year ago was that they would try to be more like a breaking points where there would be like the left populism and the right populism. And you kind of like bring that together at some point, right? Which is another question. If people don't have a problem with Crystal and Sagar having left populism and right populism, why would some of those same people have a problem with Cenk and Anna doing the same thing? Right. So that's a question to ask as well. And I said, I think part of it might be due to the fact that maybe because Trump won, they're like, you know what? We need to go in a different direction. I think some of it could be like, let's try to get some of the MAGA like supporters. I do believe that is a part of it. And I also thought a part of it was they're trying to get some type of a win, because when it comes to the progressive space, when it comes to progressive politics, we have not received like those types of wins on the national level. Those wins have happened on the local level, right? And some of those wins were happening before the squad even came into existence. So I think some people may not realize that, but when we talk about the fight for 15, some of these states already passed that before the squad members got into office. So if you really want to talk about where the progressive policies are working, it's happening more on the local level. Anywho, as you can see, Anna does not like that. And she made it very clear, like, no, that's not okay. And she said Francesca is trying to do it to get clicks or views or whatever. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of mess like over there, right? And this is the thing I will say about this. We'll put this back up here and I want to say this because I do want people to understand something. This is the thing about working for a network, right? Like TYT is a network. Like they're not just a YouTube channel. They have a channel on YouTube TV. Like if you have cable, there's a TYT channel. Right? Like when I had cable, there was a TYT channel. I believe they still have a Roku channel. It's not just a YouTube show. So it is an actual network. They have a studio. They have different shows. They have other shows that are affiliates of TYT. So you really are working for them. Like you're not, it's different when you compare it to what I do because I'm just here. Like, you know, but you really are working for them. And sometimes one of the things that I do want to bring up as well, sometimes when you are working for someone else and they decide to move in a different way, you have to ask yourself, am I going to leave that situation or am I just going to go along with it? And it seems like some people decided that they were going to leave that situation. And one thing I'll tell this to anybody, anything you do in life, work-wise, just remember the way things start out are not always the way that they end up. People move in different ways, right? So keep that in mind as well. So Anna saw that. Oh boy. And she took this to another level. I remember Emma telling me verbatim, I never have to work a day in my life if I don't want to because of how wealthy her family is. Your mom threw a nice little fundraiser for Senator Gillibrand in 2019, right? I get why you're so attached to a party that fucked over the working class over and over again. Okie dokie. So this part, this kind of sounds like that was a private conversation. It doesn't sound like that's something that Emma said out in the open, right? It sounds like that was something she might have said to her privately. Now, I do know from what I understand, I think Emma has been open about, you know, like where she comes from and that type of thing. I don't think that's something that was secretive for her, but it does kind of seem like that specific statement, I never have to work if I don't want to, was a private conversation. The other thing about this, didn't your mom have a fundraiser for Senator Gillibrand? Emma can't control what her parents do. This is another thing that I need to bring up as well. Like, kids have no control over what their parents do for a living. So just because her mom supported Kirsten Gillibrand doesn't mean that she supported Kirsten Gillibrand. That's not what I've seen. Our parents' politics aren't always our politics. To that other point, I think the point that Anna might be making is that you're not going to hold the Democratic Party accountable because of the relationship that your family has with the Democratic Party. She goes on to say, so I don't really expect her to understand what it's like to live in a neighborhood that's been overrun with criminals due to the policies she preaches in the name of gaining social capital. Fran did a hatchet job on Cenk, even though he was kind enough to waste his time going on her show in the name of openness and understanding. I knew he was making a mistake. These people aren't interested in building any coalitions. They're not open to understanding anything. They don't even give a shit about winning policy goals. You know, that's interesting because let me highlight this part here. They don't care about winning policy goals and they're not interested in building coalitions. It's interesting because I'd say that's the case from most people in the space. And the way that you find out if you're an activist, an organizer, like my comrade JB, like myself, etc., the way that you find that out is when there's time to build coalitions and do activism, they're nowhere to be found. When we had the marches for Medicare for All, because Anna, you know, we're going to point this to you too, because when the marches for Medicare for All were being organized in over 50 cities in this country, it's about 3 years ago. I just want to remind everybody that the organizers reached out to every progressive platform to ask if they could come on to promote it and get more people out in the streets. Guess who didn't respond? TYT. So you can't throw a stone in a glass house. Most of the bigger shows didn't even want to mention it. Kyle Kulinski mentioned it on Secular Talk. He promoted it and announced it, but the other ones didn't at all. So keep that in mind. She goes on to say, literally, the worst thing Cenk ever did was open up the company to these people. Oh, honey, you killing me with these people. Oh, no. No, 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 no. The worst thing Jink ever did was open up the company to these people. Damn. Oh my God, this is bad. Okay. They came in, leached off what he built, and turned on him for clout the first second they could. See everything coming out now. Also, tell me, Emma, since taking a sponsor is so unacceptable to you and the 4-person company you work for, Jesus Christ, how many of the dozens of employees at TYT should Jink lay off to appease your judgmental ass? Tell us. Damn. So why would you? This was a dig. This was a dig. The 4-person company that you work for. I mean, it doesn't matter how many people work there. I mean, this is how I feel. Like, what does that matter? Who cares? Who cares? You know, sometimes people think the larger the company, the larger the organization, the better for you, the better it will be for you. That's not necessarily the case. Some people will tell you they've had better experiences working at smaller companies, that it's more personal or feels more like a family, that type of thing. The larger the company, you end up with all this like business logistics and all this jazz, and it can get messy. Like now. Super Stuff said this is gold. Oh my God. Like that's a cheap shot, man. That was yeah. Now, you know, the poly market thing, Emma is correct about that. It's on TYT's website. You know, apparently I guess they do have a sponsor. They do have Poly Market as a sponsor now. Like, I don't know. I don't have any sponsors, man. I just don't. I don't have time for this mess. Now, let me make sure I'm going to the right one. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, wait, this part. This is the part where I think, yikes. She said, Emma, you should probably be open about the Harris campaign ad buy on the Majority Report too. Maybe that's why you were cheering so hard for a woman who shooed away any left-wing activists who wanted to ask her legitimate questions about her foreign policy in the Middle East. Okie dokie. Let's highlight this part. Kamala Harris ad buy? So I don't watch Majority Report. Has anybody seen a Kamala Harris ad like during the presidential campaign? Did anybody see a Kamala Harris ad on Majority Report? If so, in the chat, say you saw the ad. Because I think this is a first. But I think for Anna to say that and not post receipts, again, I told you guys, one of the things with me, when I do say somebody got money from something, notice I show you a receipt. But when you make statements like that and you say you had a Kamala ad buy and there's no receipt, there's no evidence, now you're just saying stuff. So I don't know. That's dangerous. I don't like when people point fingers at people taking money for something or like ad buys and they don't have any receipts. Oh, my days said she's lying, no evidence. Yeah, right. Like, so post the evidence. Skylar said, I watch Majority Report, but I've never seen a Harris ad. And Majority Report does these kind of corny radio ads for the companies all the time. Okay, so Skylar said he's never seen one. It's just really weird to me. Kind of bizarre. So, of course, Sam Cedar saw that. And he responded and said, you have lost your mind. And he was also retweeting his own tweet here. This is 100% unmitigated, absolute lie. Let's make a poly market bet on it. Damn. So do you see what happens, guys, when you make these types of statements and you don't have any receipts to back it up? Now you just look like a liar. I'll have to say this. I am very glad that I was never a part of this. I'm very glad that I was never a part of that TYT pipeline, which a lot of people were, like most people were at some point, did something over at TYT. I'm glad I was never a part of that. I started the show in 2021. It was just me. And at the time, I didn't even have a real webcam. I used the little camera that was already built into my laptop, and it was not good. But I did what I had. Did what I had. But just started it off that way. Later on, RBN asked me if I wanted to join along with them. I joined along with them, and I still kept this show. But I'm so glad that I did things the way that I did it and that I never went through that pipeline. Would I have probably grown a lot faster? Probably. But in the end, would it really have been worth it? This seems like a headache. This seems like a headache to me. So I don't know, but I feel like now it's getting nasty. And I do feel like when I say this is out of control, all of this back and forth, you said this, you said that, or whatever, I feel like this is part of the reason why the left doesn't get any wins. No, we don't. Like, not nationally, we just don't. And it seemed like to me, like Cenk and Anna tried to make, I guess, some type of calculated decision. How can we get some win somewhere, whatever? I don't know. But what I do know is that it's kind of sad to see. These are people I used to watch. Like, before I had this show, I used to sit back and I used to watch like all of these different like progressive like shows and stuff. And I was like, wow, like during the Bernie days, like, yeah, like they really encouraged me. And I was like, yeah, we got a movement. We got all this. And I saw the people out in the streets and everything. And I was really excited about all this. And something changed after Joe Biden won in 2021. And it just seemed like that coalition just didn't really exist much anymore, or people were starting to go in different directions. And what I feel like may have happened is that now all of a sudden it wasn't so much about let's build a movement and we'll do it through the Bernie Sanders movement and get some progressive wins. It seemed like after Joe Biden won, and of course now this time that Donald Trump has won, it seemed like people started to go in the direction of what would work for them monetarily, not so much what would work to build a coalition and build a movement and to help to get some progressive wins. And that is the only thing. And this is why I continue to say, I don't think that podcasters should lead a movement. Because the moment that they say something on their podcast that people may have a problem with, then there's calls to remove them from the movement. If you look back at the creation of Justice Democrats, you saw this as well. Like, right, that was created by Cenk and Kyle, and I think Vijay Prashad. I think he was involved with that too. Like, when the criticism came out about things that Cenk said in the past, he was pushed out. It's that type of thing. And that's why I feel like movements really do need to be led by the grassroots, the people that are on the ground. I still say the same thing about Force the Vote. Force the Vote should have been led by people on the ground, the grassroots, not by podcasters. Because there's so many different personalities. And then there's also a lot of ego. And like some people don't want to be on screen with other people. It's messy. It's really messy. And it's not one of those things you realize until you start doing this. And you realize like, yo, these people really don't like each other. So I think, in my opinion, it seems like it's kind of gone in a different direction. And I think Emma was on with Franny today. Eric, you did cue this up for me. Let's see what she said on here.
Support you. So no more Russells. Start with Sunset Lake CBD. Again, 35% off using the code Valentine. Get sick today because I feel like every time you've been scheduled, you've gotten sick.
Well, it's just because I don't really like talking to you.
You're like, I'm sick. Wait, okay, not even naming names, but I'm going to name his name because I kind of want to shame him to come on. But Michael Moore has definitely given me the worst excuse twice for why he couldn't come on. And like, you can only have so many deaths in the family. I love you, Mike, but you can I want your family to be okay.
Well, called out. The gauntlet is thrown down. okay, now you're a terrorist and we're going to put you on in Guantanamo Bay, basically. And if you cross here illegally, which is the equivalent of a civic violation, like, I don't know, jaywalking or getting a parking ticket, well, you're a criminal now too. So probably you don't deserve habeas corpus rights or anything kind of like that.
Yeah.
So,
or if you were a suspect of shoplifting, you don't have to have a charge, but maybe someone thought you maybe stole something.
Yeah.
You under the Lake and Riley Act, you could get detained.
Yeah, exactly right. And like, these are just common sense questions that the press in particular, and really, and we have to use social media and I don't.
And once again, I am a multimillionaire, so I just want to, name that.
Forgot.
Richies. And that obviously didn't sit well. Cenk actually kind of took it on the chin. He just said it was out of context. It was not out of context. Everyone can go back and look. He said that I was talking about Chinese Americans. I actually never mentioned Chinese Americans until after. I didn't even say Americans. I just mentioned Chinese people because undocumented Chinese people are a target of this administration.
Mm-hmm.
The point is this. I want to separate from here on off. Let's detach the Cenk cart. Let's just bye-bye. And let's talk about Anna. Anna Kasparian, again, a co-host at TYT, got very mad and said that I am attacking Cenk and sort of, stood up for the we over there last week.
Francesca Fiorentini is currently attacking you about this as if Donald Trump is unique. He's novel compared to past presidents, certainly a special kind of evil that we've never seen before. In her mind, these are the gulags that she was warning about. But
also never said gulags. A special kind of evil, never said that.
In fact, this has been a long-standing practice. You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump isn't doing anything new here.
So at this point, I believe both of them have contact with Anna Kasparian, right? Like at this point, why not just hash this out with Anna Kasparian face to face? Like, why are we doing this is, and maybe Anna will not come on. Like, I don't know, but it just seems kind of weird because now it's like these two have gotten together to talk about Anna instead of just having this or make it a debate if you want to, having this face to face like conversation with her. It's just weird. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, so I'm going to address it. I think that the clip that Francesca's using is misleading and totally out of context, but that's okay. But I know that
no, it's not okay. No, it's not okay. That dishonesty is not okay.
Get me. Get me.
Go ahead.
I hear you. I hear you. I don't mean to.
But she's getting the likes that she wants, right? Otherwise, I mean, who would pay attention to anything she's doing?
Let's go. Go, girl. Let's go, Regina.
Anyway, continue, Jen.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever pay attention to anything I'm doing. This is true. I will, however, say I did hit 100,000 on YouTube before I even invited Cenk on. I've had a very robust career before and after my time at TYT, which I actually enjoyed from time to time. I did. I was at AJ Plus. I worked at MSNBC, had a special there. I worked for National Geographic Channel. I did things for Coachella live stream. Don't kill me. It was a whole thing. It was fun. And now I'm working also with Zateo. This is fun though, Emma. And so now I wasn't going to say nothing.
Can we pause there for just a sec really briefly so I can just address what she said? So first of all, I appreciate your being very fair. Getting an election prediction wrong to me is different than protecting marginalized people from an incoming president who has basically a far right agenda. I would say that's a little bit different. But yeah, I was wrong and people clowned on me. I take it on the chin. We're in
you do.
Political discourse and debate space. And as long as it's not, I would say, bad faith, I mean, you get that from the right, but if I get it from the left, you got to take it on the chin. It's what I've signed up for. And I only really responded to Anna because I saw that video and you're my friend. She used to be my friend. And if she had been putting out continuously content that I think is making the world better, I would defend her if the roles were reversed. And you were saying that about her, but that time has passed. And when she said no one would pay attention to you if you weren't talking TYT, that got me really angry because a lot of us are really, like, I consider myself extremely lucky that I lucked into an internship with TYT, and I was able to work myself work up at the company again for little pay, as I've talked about, and I know you've experienced, a lot of other people have as well.
So again, this is a company, this is a business. Like, it's a little bit different. Like I said, for people like me and like JB, we just sit down right in front of the camera, that type of thing. But TYT is a business. So it sounds like to me that Cenk started it, but like sound like to me like they're making business decisions, right? Which may not mean they're always making ethical decisions. It's about what's best for the business. That's the difference between just sitting down and like just doing a podcast, like in your room or whatever, and you have an actual network that's a business and you have employees. That's just something to think about, you guys.
I was able to live at home during that period and save up and, live at my mom's house, who she's now bringing into this debate for no reason, because of private conversations that we've had. But I just feel like you are so talented, and Michael Brooks passed away, and there was a spot open, horrifically, a spot open for me at the Majority Report. I was lucky. Sure. I could
pause. So that Emma makes it very clear there that was a private conversation that she had with Anna. Let me tell you guys something, okay? Something I learned a long time ago. Again, TYT is a business. It's a company, right? Again, not just a show that's on YouTube. Don't tell your coworkers, and especially your bosses, don't tell them shit about your private life. Even the ones that you think are buddy, because the moment things not looking too good, they have no problem doing what Anna's just doing right now. So I had to learn that. That's something I had to learn the hard way. And I've not one to be like, let's be besties with like coworkers, because I had to learn that the hard way. What you do in private with those coworkers that are supposed to be your friends, what you guys do off the job can also end up back into the office, whether you want it to or not. So that's the thing. Again, bosses, coworkers, like it's a company, it's a business.
Be in a different industry if that didn't happen. You have had sometimes bad luck, like with AJ Plus and stuff. I mean, it's
no, I really didn't actually. I just am allergic to money, Emma. Just don't worry about it. I left AJ Plus. AJ Plus
you're so
offered
deserving,
me,
and it's
AJ Plus offered me in 2018 when they were moving to DC a very handsome salary that I turned down because I had been there for, at that point, 4 years, and I wanted to move on, and I wanted to move to LA. So that's what happened to me. And I moved to LA not for TYT. I moved to LA to actually like pitch more shows, do more comedy, meet more people, get managers and agents and whatnot. And I did. So that is, I've had a lot of luck, and I've also turned a lot of shit down. So I just want to name that. But I really, here's what I love about this. Here's what I love about this. I have tried for so many months, Emma, to not put these people's names in my mouth. Mm-hmm. To not talk about them, to hold my tongue, to refrain from talking about it. And as someone who also watches the Majority Report, I actually know you and Sam have taken also great lengths, but that the broader left audiences on platforms like YouTube and elsewhere are distraught. They are upset. They see the coverage of crime and homelessness and blaming fires on, some unhoused guy that totally turned out to be false, and the Aurora, Colorado, gang takeover, and the DEI when talking about the FAA.
This didn't just start, though. Afeni came onto the show, I think it was the first year I did this show. My very first year in 2021, me and Afeni responded to a clip that Anna made on TYT where she was calling out, said homeless people were disgusting or something like that. And we talked about that on the show. And we were like, dude, what the hell is going on? Like, why is she talking about them like that? What's happening over at TYT? That was in 2021. This didn't happen all of a sudden. It's been building up to this moment, but it didn't come out of nowhere, right?
and the crash recently, on and on and on to the cozying up to Trump. And they are upset and they are livid. And so what I decided to do was to talk to Cenk. And to be full disclosure, Anna also agreed to talk to me. However, she had a family emergency. And I said, dude, you take care of that. Do not come on my show. I wish you the best. Good luck with that. And that week she went on Glenn Beck's show. So anyway, be that as it may, I don't think I'm going to be getting her back on the show. But the reason I just want to thank you because you cut strays for me, speaking of making it super personal. But I just want to say, Emma, none of this is personal with TYT. None of it is.
I mean, this is just
have
to me
a better argument anymore. So they choose to go after people on Twitter for engagement. And as you say, I, of course, could use information that I know from my personal relationship with Anna and friendship, where we would have many calls and conversations. I could have chosen to use that stuff against her. I chose not to. She doesn't seem to have those scruples, but she distorted things about my life. The fact that my parents were lawyers and I grew up with some privilege to make a claim that I don't have to work for a living. The end of that, like I am privileged in the sense of like, I don't know if I would be able to have engaged with these ideas at such a young age, because this was an interest that developed when I was young, if I didn't have this incredible education that I wish everyone had access to, or if I didn't have the comfort to be able to exchange in these ideas and not have to worry about like,
sure,
is there going to be food on my table?
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it ends, because ever since I've left my parents' house, I am making my own money.
You're not a lawyer. You know
paying my own bills. I chose not to be a lawyer. I chose to make this career. So
what you're trying to say is you're a class traitor, and we kind of like love you harder for that. And I think,
yeah, and like the way my sister's a lawyer, the way she lives very different than the way I live now. Well, she just started. Congrats to her. But it's like, I'm really proud of her, right? And I could have gone down that road too. And but I chose not to, and I, don't make as much money because of it. And my parents, they did well. They don't have the means to support me for the rest of my life. Like the amount of money that she describes there it's just a lie. And I think she's probably distorting a conversation where I said I could have gone to law school and made a lot of money and not had to work for the rest of my life. That's something I would say.
Right.
But I don't even want to get into it because she discredited herself by claiming falsely right below that in this Twitter storm she was having well into the late hours of Saturday night, even on her time. That the Majority Report did paid ads for the Harris campaign, which is like, frankly, defamatory. I mean, it's if you want to go down that road, that never happened or ever close to, it was never close to happening. And we would never do that. And people would probably notice if we did ads. So I was making a joke that like we did it in code, but it just is, it's bizarre to use. And I knew it was a matter of time because of how desperate and unhappy she seems that she was going to.
Oh boy. Let me just say this. This is why the left doesn't win. This is why the left doesn't win, because the left spends more time. And I just, to me, especially the women, Jesus Christ, when I say it's gotten out of control, when you get to the point where you're accusing people of buying ads and you don't produce receipts for that. Okay. You crossing the line. When you go into the fact of, well, you said that you don't have to work and obviously, like I said, it sounds like that was a private conversation. Okay, now it's you're hitting below the belt, like all these types of things. And it's not just on Anna. I see it on both sides. I think, the Twitter conversation that Emma is speaking about, both of them have been doing that. Both of them on Twitter have been attacking each other back and forth. Sometimes it was started by Emma. Sometimes it was started by Anna. Like they've all been participating in this. And this is why the left doesn't win. The left doesn't win because I feel like people are more interested in fighting with people on Twitter instead of getting into the streets, instead of organizing. Like, I wish there was this amount of energy and effort into the activist spaces that we did a call to attention for. These people are nowhere to be found. And I'm going to tell you another little secret. Most people in the streets have no idea who these people are. Most people in the streets have no idea. And you can tell, just ask average people. Most people in the streets have no idea what TYT is. They have no idea what Majority Report is. They damn sure don't know who I am. Like, most people have no idea who these people are. And that's why I laugh when I'm like, the amount of ego that's in the space. It's hilarious to me because most people don't know you. It's laughable to me. But I think it's gotten to the point now where I feel like people are making hits below the belt. You can be upset with TYT that they're making the decision. They're making that change. Got it. Get it. Got it. Good. You can be upset with Emma about some of the personal decisions that she made, etc. Get it. Got it. Good. But I think when it's getting to the point now where people are being accused of having ad buys that we don't have any receipts for, or they're being accused of what their parents did for a living, or they're being accused. Now I just feel like now people are just trying to find ways to hit low. But it happens on both sides, right? I seriously wonder sometimes if the left really does want to win. Because like I said, when there's a call to action, I don't see any of these people in the street. Adventure says, I don't mind them falling out. TYT was a cute paycheck for them until it wasn't. Until it wasn't. Thank you, Mika. The Dems set up this by supporting the destruction of Gaza and vetoing every opportunity to stop it. They set Trump up for the slam dunk. Yeah. Thank you, Kenman. Emma Vigilant is pretty in a preppy way. Marvin says camel toe never attacked anyone. Okay. I don't know what to do. Shout out to Megay, who's a Sabby member, says, see you next Tuesday. Thank you, Krista. Sabby, what do you think about the NFL taking down end racism message on the field for the Super Bowl? I feel like that was going to happen eventually. But if you look at the new ad with Tom Brady and with Snoop, now the focus is end hate. But at the end of the ad, it says stop, anti-Semitism. So again, like I was explaining to people before, I do feel like this government is trying to find ways to put less attention on the struggles that African Americans go through in this country and more attention on people who don't go through as much struggles, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Thank you, Marvin. I saw Kamala ad selling her collard greens recipe. You guys are too much. Frank, I am shocked Trump just said he is taking Gaza. I actually wasn't surprised. I'm not. No filter. Thank you, Tates. Zionist funded by American evangelist Christians. Thank you, VS Need. So the period right after World War II entered the 1950s when Bumpy Johnson was the kingpin of the heroin trade in Harlem. Thank you, Sparky. If the EU and the UK come begging, President Trump should make them start calling their game soccer instead of football. Before the US gives them aid, it would be epic troll. Oh my God. Thank you for this one as well. Trump should also make them drop the metric system and adopt the US customary system to further humiliate them. You're a trip, Sparky. Thank you for this one. Anytime someone says Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. And thank you for this one. Keep in mind, Israel has killed many more Americans than Iran. Remember the bloop liberty. We got to be careful what we say on here. Buckeye fan in the house. Majority Report had no problem when TYT was smearing other leftists like Dora and Mate. Anna interviewed Albright and no one called them out for that. Yeah, people were pretty quiet about that, actually. That's a good point. Thank you, Sparky. Denazify Israel. And thank you for this one. Don't leave a rump state call Ukraine, lest it remain a NATO playground, a carpetbagger's money laundry, and a BlackRock property. And thank you for this one. Love you, Sabby. Thank you. Love you too. Thanks, John. What do you think of Shoe on Head? Her analysis on the 2024 election was spot on. I haven't watched Shoe on Head. I'll have to check out what she said, but I haven't watched her. Thank you, Sparky. F Israel. And thank you, Miriam. Well, Jill Stein would have won if everyone that didn't vote and everyone that voted for Kamala voted for Jill instead. If Jill would have, we wouldn't be having so much horrific political drama. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, we have to get people to understand that there are other options. But I think a lot of people were just afraid of Donald Trump again. But that still wasn't enough for people to come out and support Kamala Harris. It's interesting. Okay. Let's move on to the next story, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have some fun with the last story tonight. We are going to do call-ins, so we're going to have a little bit of fun. So that's right. Smash that like button. Thank you. We're going to go to this story. Crazy stuff, fam. I want people to leave South Africa alone. Okay? Leave them alone. Well, Donald Trump doesn't want to leave them alone. In fact, he is now planning to cut funding to South Africa over land law. Of course, Elon Musk is also involved with this. He's criticized the country. So we're going to go to what is happening in South Africa and what Donald Trump is trying to do there. Let's get into this.
An attempt to resolve one of South Africa's most divisive issues, unequal land ownership. A bill signed last month allows land considered to be in the public interest to be expropriated without compensation in some cases. But it's a step that's led US President Donald Trump to threaten to cut off all funding to the country.
The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land.
The South African government responded swiftly, saying no land's been confiscated.
And this is what this law is about, to transform on a balance, on a just and equitable basis. And we look forward to engagement with our U.S. counterparts.
While the law may...
So let me explain something what's happening here, right? You know, again, there's colonization that took place in South Africa. Black South Africans own very little percentage of the land. White South Africans own, I believe, is about 80% or a little bit more than 80% of the land. The land that Black South Africans want back, it's their land. The land was stolen from them. So it's really interesting that Donald Trump is complaining about Black South Africans asking for their land back. And he said they're trying to confiscate the land from the white South Africans. But he's giving money and aid to Benjamin Netanyahu to confiscate the land in the West Bank from the Palestinians. So, honey, again, when I say it's out of control, it's out of control, okay? Because you can't throw stones in a glass house. Everybody notice what is going on around here? You cannot do this. But it's happening. Elon Musk, don't forget, a part of the Trump administration. So do not forget, Elon Musk is from South Africa. He's a part of this too. He wants this to happen. Let's continue.
Makes it easier for the government to expropriate land. Legal guidelines ensure the payment of fair market value and property owners can go to court. Some people are worried the new law will mean their land will be seized by the government. And the spat is playing out on social media platforms like X, where owner and US presidential advisor Elon Musk is accusing the South African government of racist policies.
Okay, and this, if this is not the pot meat in the kettle, how is Elon accusing the South African government of racist policies when you grew up in this apartheid state where you guys gave crap to the Black South Africans and you took majority of all the resources? Does everybody see what is happening here? How can you blame this? You cannot point fingers here at Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa said South Africa is a constitutional democracy that is deeply rooted in the rule of law, justice, and equality. So he's saying we didn't confiscate any land. And Elon Musk is saying, why do you have openly racist ownership laws? Who was in charge in South Africa? What was Nelson Mandela fighting for? Think about this. He wanted the apartheid to end. Did Elon Musk stand up to white South Africans and say, why do we have such racist policies? No. In fact, he fled. It's hypocrisy at this point. It's crazy, you guys. We live in a cartoon.
The minority white population owns 3/4 of farming land in South Africa, while black people, who make up 80% of the population, own 1/4.
The original land deal that gave 87% of the land to the whites and 13% to the majority was unjust and wrong, but that you find a way to compensate and to deal with the transition to, and one way is to focus on public land.
Previously, in a public address, President Cyril Ramaphosa told Trump to stay out of South Africa's plans for land reform. While the presidency says US aid to South Africa is not significant, Trump's latest comments have had an impact. As soon as Trump said he would cut off funding to South Africa, the local currency, the rand, weakened by more than 1%. Now, stocks and government bonds also took a slump. While there are also concerns existing tariff agreements with South Africa on exports to the US may be affected, President Ramaphosa said he's not worried about relations with the country.
This is another example here of, again, support for the colonial powers. Lai says blacks are the majority. Seems this issue would have been solved after all these years. What the hell is going on? Right. For those who are not aware, black people are the majority in South Africa, but again, this is another episode of colonialism. And now what it sounds like to me is that now that Elon Musk is a part of Donald Trump's administration, it seems like to me, Elon Musk is trying to rewrite some things. That's what it seems like. And you got to make up your mind, fam. Because I mean, my whole thing is like, Elon Musk, that was your country that you grew up in, where you lived pretty well because you were on the other side of apartheid. You weren't on the side that was being oppressed. So what? This shit is crazy. Do you guys understand? A little bit more history here about what happened with the land. I want to get into this as well. What's behind South Africa's land policy? Listen to this.
Equality. President Ramaphosa appropriate land in the public interest, which could include instances of expropriation without compensation. The law has been controversial, especially within Ramaphosa's coalition government, which includes the mostly whitely led Democratic Alliance, that is the DA. However, no land has yet been expropriated under the new law. South Africa's land issue is deeply rooted in its colonial and apartheid history. During British colonial rule, most farmland was given to white settlers, and under 1950 apartheid system, the Afrikaner National Party passed legislation that allocated 85% of the country's territory to whites.
Sorry about that, guys. Let me just come out. It does this sometimes.
A National Party passed legislation that allocated 85% of the country's territory to whites.
I don't know why YouTube does this sometimes. I'm sorry, guys. We'll get to it. Let me see where I was now.
Still hold led a Democratic Alliance, that is the DA. However, no land has yet been expropriated under the new law. South Africa's land issue is deeply rooted in its colonial and apartheid history. During British colonial rule, most farmland was given to white settlers, and under 1950 apartheid system, the Afrikaner National Party passed legislation that allocated 85% of the country's territory to whites, while forcibly removing 3.5 million black South Africans from their ancestral land.
Does this sound familiar? It sounds like what happened to the Palestinians, right? British came in, British colonial rule comes in and says, oh, again, even though they are the majority, let's move them out and give most of the land to the colonizers. So this been going on, fam. Been going on.
Since the end of apartheid and the African National Congress, that is the ANC, coming to power in 1994, some land restitution has occurred under a willing buyer, willing settler model. However, this process has been criticized for its slow pace and the accusations that white landowners are hoarding land, hindering meaningful reform. The new expropriation law seeks to speed up the process and address these historic imbalances, but it remains highly divisive. The expropriation law has been the subject of intense debate for years, with critics arguing that it violates constitutional property rights and could deter foreign investment. The Democratic Alliance, which is South Africa's main opposition party, has been particularly vocal in its opposition, asserting that the law is unconstitutional. On Monday, the DA issued a statement addressing Trump's comments, clarifying that the Expropriation Act does not allow for arbitrary land seizures.
Let me pause here for a second, because another thing that I want to add is that, and I'm thinking about what's happening with South Africa. South Africa is a part of BRICS. So this is where I would want the other BRICS nations to jump in and get involved. You see what I mean? Don't forget also with this attack on South Africa, it was South Africa that brought Israel to the ICJ. Remember that. They brought Israel to The Hague. So there's a number of moving pieces here. I think Elon is a part of this. I would not be surprised if Israel has something to do with this as well. But this is kind of their way of getting back at South Africa. And it's just an absolute disaster. And I just really want those other countries that are part of BRICS to step up, right? When one of your brothers is hit, you guys should form like Voltron or like the Avengers and help out. Because this is insane. This is absolutely insane. A little bit more here.
Instead, it mandates that land can only be expropriated if it is proven to be in the public interest, and authorities must first attempt to reach an agreement with the landowner. After years of parliamentary discussions, the law's wording has been carefully crafted to ensure that land expropriation is carried out in a controlled and transparent manner. However, its implementation remains contentious with both political and public opposition. In 2023, the United States committed approximately $440 million in aid to South Africa, with the bulk of funding directed towards health initiatives, particularly HIV/AIDS.
Yeah, then they go into the health implications there. We need to leave these countries alone. Again, this is out of control. It's insane to me that they're seriously thinking about, well, let's intervene there and stop the Black South Africans from having their land. This is insane. For Elon Musk is on Twitter praising apartheid. Everybody get that? Elon Musk is on Twitter praising apartheid. I tried to tell people who this guy was, and so many people got excited. They're like, he's taking over Twitter. He's for free speech and da-da-da-da. It's just more colonialism, man. More colonialist like policies. It's insane. Let's go to some of the comments here. All right. Fire says, oh, thank goodness it's a call-in night. I'm going to explode. Yes, call in after the show tonight. Oh, and I hope everybody answered that poll. Eric, don't let me forget about the poll. Thank you, Mama Alaska. Sabs, this seems to be hidden agenda to punish South Africa for winning the ICJ and the ICC conviction of Netanyahu's government for genocide like a backdoor move. I agree. Thank you, Sparky. Best we can hope for, in my opinion, is Trump pro-genocide now, just to get Tulsi and Patel through Senate confirmation. Then he'll back off a little, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Nazil, Sabby, can you have Jill Stein on? Everyone's asking what she's doing now. She was just on here. Jill Stein and Shama Sawant were just on the show. If you look on my channel under clips, you should be able to see there. It's not too far ago, but you can find it on my channel. Thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Ask Africans from Zimbabwe and Nigeria how they feel about South Africa. Interesting. Do tell. Angel says, it reminds me of what is going on in Palestine. Yep. All right, Eric, I'll save the other ones for you to get to. Let me go ahead and do this way. Okay, Eric, don't delete the rest of the super chats. We can do those after. I want to get to the Kendrick story, though, because this is my hype. Okay, fam. It is time for a little more fun story. We have good news story. Can we do some good news? Can we do good news? Okay, so we have a good news story because something good did happen. Sunday night, Kendrick Lamar won 5 Grammys. He had an historic night, and I'll get into the details about why it is historic for him and his genre of music. Every category that Kendrick Lamar was nominated in, he got all 5. All 5. And to make matters even better, he showed up in a Canadian tuxedo. This is what we call Canadian tuxedo here, guys. Look at this. The jean suit, the Canadian tuxedo. Kendrick Lamar sweeps the 2025 Grammys with Song of the Year win, Not Like Us. First of all, this is the first time I have heard of a rapper or an artist winning a Grammy for a diss track. But lyrically, Not Like Us is different than other things that I've heard. What people have to understand is that the Grammys are based on artistic merit. So they're looking at the lyrics, they're looking at the rhythm, the flow, they're looking at, Kendrick Lamar has a style that is unique. And I don't like a lot of new rap, so trust me on this. I don't like a lot of new hip hop. I'm a 90s hip hop girl, an early 2000s hip hop girl. I grew up on Tupac, Biggie, Nas, Eminem, a little bit Vanilla Ice, not gonna lie. But I grew up on that. Nelly, that kind of stuff. I'm used to that type of hip hop. So a lot of the newer rap, I just wasn't really a fan of. I heard a song on the radio a couple years ago, and the song was like, I'ma wash them dishes, I'ma iron them clothes, I'ma wash them dishes, I'ma iron them clothes. And I said, what the hell happened to rap? So for those of us that went through the Tupac, Biggie years, we're not really into that. Like, I felt like rap got lazy. And then came Kendrick Lamar. And I said, this is the type of rap we were used to, right? The lyricist. Bring back the lyricist in hip hop. So it says, immediately after winning Record of the Year, Kendrick Lamar and his collaborators reemerged from backstage at the 2025 Grammys to collect the trophy for Song of the Year. Lamar was speechless and starstruck after taking the golden gramophone from presenter Diana Ross. And Diana Ross was there and she showed up, honey. Okay. And I am a big Diana fan. So to see Diana up there is just like, I love you all. You guys know how Diana does. I love you all. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Taking people back, right? So she was the one there to hand him that Grammy. And I just had to say to myself, like, I was so happy for Kendrick Lamar. So happy for him. Because this whole battle that he had back and forth with Drake, I kept saying I thought Kendrick did the better battle. I said I thought he was the better lyricist. And I like some of Drake's songs, but I thought Kendrick did the better job. Has anybody checked on Drake? Drake doing okay? Anybody? No? I don't know. When Kendrick won The last one, when he won Record of the Year, which is very difficult to get, especially if you're a rapper. We'll get to that in just a second. You guys know the whole audience was singing with him. When he got up to go get his Grammy, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, like everybody said, but it's probably A minor. The whole crowd was singing with him. So I'm asking you, can you check on Drake? Is he okay? We're going to get into the significance of his win, but Drake's dad did respond, and Drake's dad doesn't really care. I want to show you what he said. This is interesting, but we're going to celebrate Kendrick's win.
Gotta ask, what do you think about Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, getting Record of the Year?
I don't care nothing about that shit.
No.
That ain't got nothing to do with me. All the best to him, man.
Okay, cool.
I don't do that bullshit.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
So Drake's dad said he really doesn't care anything about that, of course, right? Because, you know, he won with a diss track. And I believe Kendrick Lamar now has 19 Grammys. We'll go ahead and get into why this is historic. Ladies and gentlemen, peep this.
Value from this point forward. If you're wondering for a second why it's so incredibly monumental that Kendrick just won both record and Song of the Year in the main categories for not just a hip-hop song, but a diss song nonetheless, when everyone thought that the future of diss songs and rap battles could potentially be compromised by the defamation lawsuit that Drake just filed, then I want to emphasize to you why it is such an achievement to win in one of these main categories. Since the inception of hip-hop and the Grammys, only one other hip-hop song has ever won in the main categories, and that was This Is America in 2019 by Childish Gambino for Record of the Year. No song has ever won Song of the Year. And let's look at the very few times that the Grammys ever even nominated hip-hop songs in these main categories.
Pause. So the last time a hip-hop song won for Record of the Year was Childish Gambino, This Is America. Typically, rap songs don't win in those categories. Now, he's going to go through some of the nominations that have happened and how all these people lost. So listen to this. That's why it's a historic night for Kendrick Lamar.
And let's see who they lost to. All the way back in 1990, MC Hammer was nominated for You Can't Touch This. Record of the Year, he lost to Phil Collins, Another Day in Paradise. In 1996, they skipped over some of the most amazing hip-hop songs we've ever gotten, from legends like Tupac, Jay-Z, Nas, Biggie, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre. The list goes on, but in 96, they did nominate Coolio for his song Gangsta's Paradise for Record of the Year, but that, of course, did lose to Eric Clapton's Change the World.
And I really do think that Coolio should have won that one. I remember that. I think he should have won it. He did not. But to that point, gangster rap typically didn't win. Right. And I think Tupac was probably one of the best lyricists that I know of. But typically it just did not. It was not. They weren't trying to include that.
In 1999, they nominated Lauryn Hill for Doo-Wop for Record of the Year. That lost to Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. In 2001, Eminem was nominated for Record of the Year with The Real Slim Shady. He lost to U2's Beautiful Day. Outkast was also nominated in that category for Hey Ya. They also lost. In 2002, Outkast again was nominated for Miss Jackson for Record of the Year. They lost to Norah Jones's Don't Know Why. In 2003, Eminem again was nominated for Record of the Year with Lose Yourself. He lost to Coldplay's Clocks. In 2000.
And I don't agree with a lot of these wins. I really don't. Like, I thought Lose Yourself should have won. But again, notice how they all lose. They all lose. And then they lose to like artists that disappeared. Like Norah Jones, she had that song, I Don't Know Why, which is a beautiful song. Anybody know where Norah at now? Because I haven't heard from Norah. Pick up the phone. Someone call Norah and say, Norah, you can't call nobody? Ask her. Find out what's going on. Where some of these people go?
With the emergence of Kanye West, we saw Jesus Walks get nominated for Song of the Year. That lost to John Mayer's Daughters. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, they seemed to nominate every song that had a Rihanna feature, as in 2008, Rihanna and Jay-Z's song Umbrella was nominated for Record of the Year. That lost to Amy Winehouse's Rehab. In 2011, Eminem and Rihanna's song Love the Way You Lie was nominated for Record of the Year. That lost to Lady Antebellum's song Need You Now. In 2012, Rihanna and Kanye West's All of the Lights was nominated for Song of the Year. That lost to Adele's Rolling in the Deep. 2014, the Grammy Darlene Macklemore was nominated for Thrift Shop for Song of the Year. That lost to Lord Royals. In 2015, they nominated Iggy Azalea with her song Fancy. That, to no surprise, lost Record of the Year to Sam Smith's Stay With Me. In 2016, Kendrick received his first nomination for Song of the Year with his song All Right. That lost to Ed Sheeran's song Thinking Out Loud. Kendrick again was nominated in 2018 for his song Humble. For Record of the Year, that lost to Bruno Mars's 24K Magic. 2019 was the first time a rap song won with Childish Gambino's This Is America. It won Record of the Year. In 2020, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X lost Record of the Year to Billie Eilish. In 2023, Kendrick again was nominated for the Heart Part 5 for Record and Song of the Year. That lost as well. And so here we are today after dozens and dozens of snubs on classic records. Not Like Us becomes the first hip-hop song to win both Record and Song of the Year, and simultaneously becomes the most awarded rap song at the Grammys in history, as it won in every single category it was nominated in: Best Music Video, Best Rap Song and Performance, and of course both Record and Song of the Year. Kendrick.
Let's give it up for Kendrick Lamar again. First to win, first rap to win Best Song and Best Record of the Year. He took home 5 Grammys. He beat the struggle there, and he was able to break through. We haven't dropped the beat in a while, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's time for us to go ahead and drop that beat. Give it up for Kendrick. Dance with me. Dance with me. Move up. Take up. Hey. So this is a big deal, guys. This is a big deal. And it's not just because, like I said, it's not just because he won 5 Grammys. He won every category, but he is a rap artist who won Song of the Year and Record of the Year. That is historic for the Grammys. I saw FM said earlier, that's why he stopped watching the Grammys. Same. The reason why I stopped watching a lot of these music award shows, and is also why I don't watch the Oscars, because also I don't want to fall asleep during it. The Oscars put me to sleep. Anywho, I stopped watching them because it was the same thing over and over. It was like the people who you knew should win a lot of times didn't win. And it was the same thing over and over. And I was just like, man, I don't really see it. And it was the same people that would perform every time. I'm like, it's the same people. Justin Timberlake, Katy Perry, maybe Red Hot Chili Peppers, like Pink might come out there, Maroon 5. Like it was so predictable. So I had stopped watching it as well. But I did take a peek at it this time, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to watch the full thing, because if I do, he's probably not going to win. I think I jinxed these people, maybe, right? So I didn't. I decided to tune out, and next thing I know, he made history. We are going to celebrate that, fam, because you are going to get a chance to hear the song with the lyrics, which I think is like based, okay? I think it's a based diss song, and also the great thing about this is that Kendrick made this song copyright free so that people could react to it on YouTube. I haven't had a chance to play it on here. We're going to play the song. Then we're going to go to the poll, do the chats, and then we're going to do call in. But we got to give it up for Kendrick. Let's give it up for Kendrick. Psst. I see dead people.
Hi, monster on the beat, ho, Debo, any rap nigga, he a free throw, man down, call like Amber Lambs, tell him breathe, bro, nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton? The industry can hate me, fuck them all and they mama. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton.
Hey! For those who aren't aware, John Stockton was a basketball player, just for people who are not aware. Some people asked me that before. They were like, who is John Stockton? He was a basketball player. We go.
Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walk him down whole time, I know he got some hoe in him. Pole on him, extort shit, bully the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. To any bitch that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs. And party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baca got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boys, certified pedophiles. Wop, 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 wop. That fuck 'em up. Wop, 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 wop. I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably A minor. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. Hey. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. You think the Bay gon' let you disrespect Pop, nigga? I think that Oakland show gon' be your last stop, nigga. They cold foul, I don't know why you still pretending. What is the owl? Bird niggas and bird bitches, go. The audience not dumb, shape the stories how you want. Hey Drake, they're not slow. Rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further, I promise. Ain't there some B-rest that's for bitchin'? You Malibu most wanted, ain't no love boy, you ball boy, fetch Gatorade or something. Since 2009, I had this bitch jumping. You niggas will get a wedgie, be flipped over your boxes, or over your foe. The other vaginal option, pussy. Nigga better straighten they posture. Got favors all up in content. Might write this with a doctor. Tell a pop star quit hiding. Fuck a caption, won't action. No accident, I'm hands on. He fuck around, get polished. Fucked on Wayne Grow, he was in jail. That's conniving. Then get his face tatted like a bitch apologizing. I'm glad D-Rose came home, y'all didn't deserve him neither. From Alondra down to Central, nigga better not speak on Serena. And your homeboy needs subpoena. That predator moving flocks. That name gotta be registered and placed on neighborhood watch. I lean on you niggas like another line of walk. Yeah, it's all eyes on me and I'ma send it up the pot. Ay, put the road label on me, I'ma get them dropped. Ay, sweet chin music and I won't pass the ox. Ay, how many stocks do I really have in stock? Ay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 5. Ay, devil is a lie, here 69 God. Ay, freaky ass niggas need to stay their ass inside. Ay, roll their ass up like a fresh pack of Zod. Ay, city is back up, it's a must, we outside. Ay. They not like us. 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 Once upon a time, all of us was in chains. Homie still double down, calling us some slaves. Atlanta was the mecca, building railroads and trains. Bear with me for a second, let me put y'all on game. The settlers was using town folk to make them richer. Fast forward 2024, you got the same agenda. You run to Atlanta when you need a check balance. Let me break it down for you, this the real nigga challenge. You caught Future when you didn't see the club. Hey, what? Little baby help you get your lingo up. What? 21 get your false street cred. Thug make you feel like you a slime in your head. Hey, what? Quavo said you can be from Northside. What? 2 Chainz say you good, but he lied. You run to Atlanta when you need a few dollars. No, you not a colleague, you a fucking colonizer. The family matter and the truth of the matter. Here was God's plan to show y'all the liar.
Hey!
He a fan, he a fan, he a fan. He a fan, he a fan, he a freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Hey, 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 run for your life. Hey, 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 run for your life. Freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Hey, 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 run for your life. Hey, 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 run for your life. Let me hear you say OV-ho. OV-ho. Say OV-ho. OV-ho. Then step this way, step that way. Then step this way, step that way. Are you my friend? Are we locked in? Then step this way, step that way. Then step this way, step that way.
Somebody check on Drake to make sure he's okay. Dance party over here. All right. Give it up for Kendrick Lamar, you guys. He deserve it. He deserve it of all people. I haven't had a dance party on here in a while. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll come back. We'll do call in. Eric, I think, is going to come on and do that poll and the other chats. Yeah, I think there's other super chats as well. So I'll be back. We'll do call in.
All right. We're having a party. All right. Let's see what we got here. Let me adjust this. So this is the part of the show where we give Sabrina a little break before we transition over to the call-in room. It's actually on Zoom. She's creating the room as we speak, and then we'll have a link for you a little bit down the road here. But let's start with the poll. Let me get that set up the right way here. Just gotta scroll over. Here we go. All right, let's check out that poll. So the poll question was, how much do you know about USAID? And with about 1,680 votes or so, we've got 45% said I know a little bit about it. 14% said I know a lot about it. 22% said I know a moderate amount about it. And 20% said, what's USAID? So there you go. I guess the majority said they knew a little bit about it. We don't have a huge amount of people claiming to be experts, but hopefully after tonight, you know a good deal more about it. That USAID is basically a CIA cutout. The other thing, you know, I'd say about that whole thing is watch the read and see the videos by The Gray Zone with Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate. They really have a lot of good information about foreign policy and organizations like USAID and excuse me, and NED, National Endowment for Democracy, and how these people really how these organizations are really used to forward, you know, the interests of the U.S. government and so forth. So, yeah, Chuck Ruby on here saying, why can't we watch Colin on here? Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. Probably the main reason is that if we put the Colin on YouTube, we have to worry about YouTube rules and YouTube censorship. One of the cool things about Colin is we can, you know, be free of that and kind of say what we want to say and so forth on there. So yes, and Sabby will be back shortly. Meanwhile, let's look at some of these super chats. Thanks for the super chat, John McKinney. Since you mentioned Nickelback earlier, what do you think of System of a Down, Avenged Sevenfold, Disturbed, and My Chemical Romance? Did I ask you this question already? If so, my apologies. I mean, I would say if you want to talk music with Sabby, hop on the Zoom call, you know, and talk about it then. It's also a little bit funny, you know, talking about what's good and what's bad in music, because, you know, people, if you name any group or artist or even song, you know, you'll get 1,000 people saying it's the best thing ever, and you'll get 1,000 people saying it's trash. So it's kind of a very, you know, kind of a personal thing. There's, you know, music stuff. Thanks for the super chat, Blanco, who says, RMP Neely Fuller Jr. quote, white supremacy aims to control both sides of the argument, end quote. I'm white and I say so. All right, thanks for that. And Adventures of Mr. Kid had put in, South Africa will not last under BRICS without Black African labor, and it's true adjacent to its neighboring countries. Thanks for that. And Sparky, thanks for the super chat. He says, people may have assumed that South African apartheid went back hundreds of years, but it wasn't the law until after World War II, which is surprisingly recent. Yeah, there's a whole history there with the Afrikaners and a lot of nasty history there. And Sparky, thanks for this one. It says, build a better world with BRICS. Thanks for the super chat. Yala Bite. Can you have Jesse Peterson debate Roland Martin? I don't think Sabby has control of either of those people or really influence on them. But thanks for the super chat. And thanks for this one, American Autopsy. Tupac is not even in the top 50 lyricists of all time. And thanks for this one, Sparky. It's still not as good as Thugnificent and Lethal Interjection Crew, F. Grandad. Okay, thanks for that. Sparky asks in the super chat, isn't Drake an Israel stooge? I'm not sure, but thanks for that super chat, Sparky. And thanks for this one, American Autopsy, who says Kendrick don't get a single Grammy for GKMC, but get 5 for a mid-Drake diss. And somehow we're supposed to believe the industry isn't going after Drake. You know, I mean, as some people put in there, you know, it's a lot of politics and a lot of, you know, arbitrariness and, you know, top-down decision-making when it comes to any of these award shows, and they're an inside game and, you know, and so forth. And Focus became a new YouTube member. Glad to have you in the YouTube house. I think we got something out on Rockfin. Let me see if I can bring that up with a few clicks here. There we go. All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks for this tipped comment on Rockfin, Mr. Roger Meadows. He says, Sabrina, what's up with all this talking nonsense? Screw the talking. Where's the chick fight? I want to see things getting popped, wigs getting snatched. Fast forward past the Sabs where they get to the scrapping. All right. Thanks for that, Roger. And I think we got something out on the Rockfins too. Let's see. Yeah, I think. I'm just going to read this one out because I'm not. Let me see if I can show it. Sometimes it's a little bit of a technical challenge. Sometimes here showing these. But let's see if I scroll this just right. I'm going to read it out. Thanks for the tipped comment out on Rumble. Wild Rose 1, appreciate it. You said, I'm with what Kanye said regarding Kendrick. Basically, if you aren't down with what he's doing, you are missing out. From the Rumble. All right, and I think I covered what needs to be covered here.
Awesome. Someone mentioned Lethal Interjection. We can play it on call in. I can't play it on here, but that song is funny from Boondocks. You just mad because your ass is old. I love that song. I miss the Boondocks.
Do what we want out on Zoom Hangout call-in, whatever we call it.
Yeah. So that link is pinned to the top of the chat if you want to join the Zoom call in right there. I'll go ahead and open it. I like to open it while I'm on the stream. And if you want to speak, you just raise your hand. The way you do that is at the bottom, there's a sign here that says raise your hand. Just raise your hand. Everyone who comes on there knows how to do this. But you can also find that link. If you catch the stream after the fact, we always pin the link on sabbysabs2.com along with the passcode.
Go there right now.
Yeah, it seems like people are getting in without the passcode again as usual. So I don't even know if the passcode really helps, but
you got the react button, you hit raise hand.
And I just ask everyone to mute really quick when you come on. Thank you. And Eric, I will make you a co-host.
And then I can mute them.
Hey. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. See you all in the Zoom Hangout call-in.
Just a reminder, guys, there's no show on Thursday night. I do have plans, but I'll be back Friday night. But that interview with Colonel Wilkerson should post on Thursday, I believe. So stay tuned for that. That'll post on the afternoon. That's a really good interview. You don't want to miss that one. But other than that, guys, we are heading out. Have a good night. Dun, dun, dun. Keep up the fight.